What is up, party people? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Jamila. This is JemilaBeReadin, because I do be reading. And today is time for another monthly wrap-up. Let's talk about what I read in September. So, September was not a great reading month for me. I didn't read nearly as much as I wanted to. I started to get a bit slumpy. I was reading a lot of books that they were all meh, you know? Like, not even bad. They were all just fine. Nothing was like super calling out to me this month. There were a few hits, but mostly it was all just vaguely mediocre. So, wasn't the best month for me. I'm really hoping October and spooky season can help with that. We'll find out though. We'll find out. Okay, so I'm going to just quickly talk about some of the books that I read for this video that is already up if you want to go and watch it. I ended up reading books and building a TBR based off of book talk filters. And for that, I read The Cruel Prince, I read Honeygirl, They Never Learn, and a book called Blindsided, which I ended up DNFing. I will refer you to that video if you want to hear like full thoughts, but I'll just quickly run through my thoughts and ratings on those books for that video. The Cruel Prince, I ended up giving 3 stars. This is a YA fantasy book, the first in a trilogy involving Fae and a Fae world. Our main character is Jude, who is human and gets swept away, basically kidnapped by her mother's baby daddy from her older sister's dad, but not her dad, and gets taken. He takes all of the kids to the fairy world and they grow up there. Her older sister is part Fae. Her and her other sister are not, I think, twins. They're just fully human. She's having a rough time growing up in this fairy world because she's human and they think that they're better than humans. Anyway, I ended up giving it 3 stars. Thought it was fine. It was really readable. I had a good time while reading it for the most part. And yeah, like, it is what it is. I'll probably continue on with the series, although I'm not like dying to get to the next book. I'll probably get around to it eventually. Or not. Who knows? I'm not that pressed about it. The other book that I read for that video was Honeygirl by Morgan Rogers. This is a contemporary fiction novel with some romantic elements, but barely. I feel like this book was very heavily pushed as a romance novel when it first came out, and it really isn't. It's definitely more like you're in your 20s trying to figure out who you are, what you want to do with your life. It's that kind of book, right? Usually something that would work for me. It's very plotless. Again, usually something that would work for me. A lot of people who have similar taste of books to myself really enjoyed it. I had high expectations. I ended up giving it 2 stars. It just had a lot of elements that I didn't like. It's about Grace, who ends up going to Vegas and getting married to this girl named Yuki. And I feel like that's like the main pitch of the story, but really it's about her she just finished her PhD program. She's trying to like figure out what she wants to do next, and she's always been a very go perfectionist type of personality, and now she's just kind of struggling because things aren't coming particularly easy to her right now. So, yeah, I just feel like everyone felt very one-dimensional. All the like relationships felt really bland. I felt like her friends were bad, even though this book really tried to tell you that this was like such a solid friend group. It had prose that I really didn't like. It actually kind of reminded me of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. So maybe if you really like that book, check this out. I didn't like the writing style in that either. So yeah, it was a flop for me, unfortunately. But I understand why a lot of people like it. And then the other book that I read for that video was They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. This is a thriller ? Dark academia ? We're following 2 POVs, Scarlett, who's a professor at this university, and Carly, who's a student. Scarlett's a serial killer. So, interesting stuff. Is she gonna get caught? Who knows? I don't know. It was a good time. I gave this one around like a 3.5, 3.75 stars. Really engaging. Wanted to know what was gonna happen. But I mean, it's like lightly forgettable, you know? Like, I really, really enjoyed it in the moment, but then afterwards I was like, all right, I finished the book. And then I haven't really thought about it since, so I still would recommend it, though. And then that last book that I read for that video, which I didn't read because I DNF'd, was Blindsided. It's a sports romance that you can find on KU. I already aired out all my grievances about why I ended up DNFing this book in that video. Again, go check it out. But yeah, it just was not for me. And it was a massive flop. So I DNF'd it after the first chapter. So I only read 12 pages. So really, I didn't read it. So let's go back to the beginning of September again. I read Funny You Should Ask by Elisa Sussman. This is a romance, contemporary romance, that's like loosely based on the 2011 JQ article that was done, written by this reporter who spent like a weekend with Chris Evans, and it was weird. I don't think I read it, although it sounds familiar to me. I think maybe I like went and looked it up at some point in time. Anyways, so this is what that book is loosely based on. You have this reporter who spent a weekend with this rising actor who is just recently picked to be the new Bond. And she spends a weekend with him. Things happen, but she ends up writing a piece that like goes viral, kind of shoots her career forward. His career moves forward, but they haven't talked because things ended weirdly, I suppose, after that weekend. And they're reconnecting after a decade because he ended up going to rehab for alcoholism, and now he's coming out and he's like trying to kind of jumpstart his career again. And so they contact her, do this piece. Anyway, so we get a lot of past and present timeline, except it's mostly past timeline and barely anything in the present. And it just didn't make sense to me because why did they fall in, like barely, like when I tell y'all barely anything in the present, like there's so much time wasted in the past. So like it would be, okay, we get an excerpt from the article, then we get what actually happened in the past, and then we'll get like this weird excerpt from her blog that has nothing to do with anything, and then we'll get a little like chapter of the present, and then it'll repeat. But it's just it was rough. I just didn't like it. I don't think it worked. 2 stars. Okay, I read the first volume of Nana, which is a manga series from the 90s. It's like contemporary slice of life. We have 2 girls named Nana as our protagonists. And I think their lives are going to diverge. They're both going to Tokyo. And I think they're going to be roommates. I haven't gotten that far because I only read the first volume. But I thought it was really enjoyable. It's good. It's popular for a reason. Good stuff. I'm going to continue. And then I read... You know, I really haven't read this a lot. I already said this, but I'm looking at my Goodreads and I'm like, damn, I really didn't read a lot this month. I picked up a short romance novella called Toying with Temptation about this doctor who is just doing too much. And she's going on vacation. She's like kind of cutting off communication with her family because she's the type of person that like just takes care of everyone except for herself. So she's going on vacation and she meets this guy on vacation who is a sex toy creator. Okay. And he is trying to work on some new product. And obviously she is there to help. Yeah, I don't really know what to say. Enjoyable. Did what it needed to do. Quick and easy. 3 stars. The last book, I guess, we're already at the end. This is a really short wrap-up, but I read House of Hunger. I was able to get an e-arc of this from NetGalley, and I read it. I finished it like a couple days before the release, which was like 2 weeks ago now, a week and a half ago now, whatever. I loved The Year of the Witching. I feel like I talk about it a lot, especially on TikTok. So I was very excited for this. And I enjoyed it. It wasn't as good as The Year of the Witching because I gave The Year of the Witching 5 stars. This one I gave like a 3.75 stars. I think it's just pacing wise. I think it could have been longer. I feel like we could have gotten maybe a little bit more like world building. I understand like it's just definitely more like a vibes book, gothic. We're here for the vibes, not so much plot and world building, but I think it could have used just a little more dash, you know what I mean? The pacing got a little wonky at the end, but it was a good time. I really enjoyed the vibes. If you are someone that enjoys gothic fiction, I think you'll like this. If you like sapphic stories, I think you'll like this. If you like vampire question mark books, I think you'll like this. Yeah, it was a good time. Like, I really, even though I gave it 3.75 stars, like, I don't really have qualms with it. Like, I wasn't disappointed by it. You know what I mean? Like, it was good. It just, like, it could have been better. But I would still recommend it. And I will be purchasing a copy. You know what I mean? So, hop to it. I don't usually talk about books that I DNF, but I guess I'll quickly touch on it because I did read like 20% of it. And I did talk about Blindsided. So if I was going to talk about that, I'll talk about this. And that was Sweet, Soft, Plenty of Rhythm. I was able to get an arc of this. I read it a bit late. It came out in earlier September, but I ended up DNFing it. It really wasn't my cup of tea, which is surprising because, again, it seemed like the type of book that I'd really enjoy. And I was chatting with some other people who ended up reading it and really liked it. And I'm like, I might come back to it. It's like a temporary DNF, but I just like, I don't know if I just wasn't in the right headspace or maybe it just actually wasn't for me, but I might give it another shot in the future. But for now, I DNF'd it. And yeah, I guess that's the end of this video. I feel like this is the quickest I've ever done a wrap up. I mean, I guess I did have a reading vlog, so I like quickly went over the books that I read for that. But yeah, enjoy spooky season. I hope you read a lot of cool spooky books, or not, if that's not your cup of tea. But some fall things, you know, go to a pumpkin patch, drink some pumpkin spice lattes, you feel me? Yeah. I'm quite befuddled that we're already at the end of this wrap up, but it is what it is. Let's hope we got some good reads for October, and I'll check y'all in the next video.